Jake Morrison stood at the main window of the U-East Meridian and watched the massive alien ship grow larger in front of them. The Zephyrian vessel looked nothing like human ships. Where human designs were round and smooth, this ship had sharp angles and dark metal that seemed to drink in the starlight. It was 3 times bigger than the Meridian and looked like it could destroy them without much effort. First time seeing one up close, Lisa Park asked as she joined him at the window. She was the communications expert on their team and had been studying Zephyrian language patterns for months. "Yeah," Jake said, "the pictures don't do it justice. That thing is huge." Dr. Alex Turner walked up behind them carrying a datapad. The Zephyrians built their ships for long voyages between star systems. They needed something that could handle deep space for years at a time. That's why it's so big. Jake nodded, but kept looking at the alien ship. As a lieutenant commander and engineer, he understood ship design, but this was different. This ship was built by minds that thought in ways humans were still trying to understand. In 3 hours, he would be inside. That ship, sitting across from aliens that most humans had never seen in person. The Zephyrians had made contact with humanity 5 years ago. Since then, there had been messages back and forth, but no face-to-face meetings. Both sides had been careful, testing each other, trying to figure out if the other species could be trusted. Now the governments on both sides had decided it was time for real talks. Jake had been chosen to lead the human team because he was good at solving problems and talking to difficult people. He had served on 3 different ships and had helped settle disputes between human colonies. But aliens were something new. "Incoming message from the Zephyrian ship," Lisa said, touching her earpiece. "They're ready for us to dock." Jake took a deep breath. "All right, everyone. Let's make history." The docking process took 20 minutes. Jake felt the slight bump as the 2 ships connected. He had changed into his best uniform, the dark blue one with all his medals. Lisa wore her formal diplomatic outfit, and Dr. Turner had his science division uniform with the special patches. That showed he was a xenobiology expert. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake stepped through first, followed by his team. The inside of the Zephyrian ship was darker than human ships, with purple lights instead of white ones. The walls were smooth and curved, and everything seemed to be made from the same dark metal. As the outside, 3 figures waited for them in the docking bay. Jake had seen pictures of Zephyrians before, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, taller than most humans, with long arms and legs. Their skin was a pale blue-gray color, and their eyes were large and violet. They wore uniforms that looked like they were made from liquid metal, dark and shining. The one in the middle stepped forward. Jake could tell this was their leader by the way the other 2 stayed behind her. She was female, though Zephyrian females looked very similar to males. Her uniform had more decorations than the others, and she carried herself like someone used to giving orders. "I am Commander Vexara Nightwind of the Zephyrian Alliance Fleet," she said. Her voice was clear and had only a slight accent. She had learned to speak human languages very well. "You are Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison." "That's right, Jake," said. "This is Communications Specialist Lisa Park and Dr. Alex Turner, our xenobiology expert." Commander Nightwind nodded once to each of them. Her face showed no emotion at all. Her violet eyes looked at each human carefully, like she was studying them. "Follow me. The meeting room has been prepared." They walked through corridors that were wider than human ship corridors. Everything was clean and organized. Jake noticed there were no decorations anywhere, no pictures or personal items. Every surface was smooth and functional. The Zephyrians they passed in the hallways all moved with the same controlled, purposeful walk as their commander. The meeting room was large and round, with a table in the center. The lighting was soft, and Jake realized they had adjusted it to be more comfortable for human eyes. Commander Nightwind gestured for them to sit on one side of the table, while she and her officers took the other side. "We will begin with territorial boundaries," Commander Nightwind said, activating a holographic display above the table. "Your species has been expanding into sectors that border our space." For the next 2 hours, they discussed trade routes, mineral rights, and border patrols. Commander Nightwind spoke in a calm, even voice that never changed tone. She presented facts and figures with perfect precision. She never smiled, never frowned, never showed any sign that she cared about anything beyond the business at hand. But Jake was watching her carefully. He had learned long ago that people often said more with their bodies than with their words. He noticed that when they talked about human settlements near Zephyrian space, her fingers would tap once against the table. When Lisa mentioned casualties from recent pirate attacks, Commander Nightwind's shoulders became slightly more tense. Most interesting was what happened when Dr. Turner asked about Zephyrian colony worlds. Commander Nightwind answered his questions with the same flat tone as always, but Jake saw her breathing change. It became slower, more controlled, like she was working to keep it steady. Jake began to wonder if the stories about Zephyrians being emotionless were really true. Maybe they just hid their feelings better than humans did. "Commander," Jake said during a break in the discussion, "can I ask you something personal?" Her violet eyes fixed on him. "What do you wish to know? Do you enjoy your work? Leading a ship? Meeting with other species?" For just a moment, something flickered across her face. It was too quick for Jake to be sure what it was. Then her expression became blank again. "I perform my duties as required by the Alliance." Before Jake could ask another question, an alarm started sounding throughout the ship. Commander Nightwind touched a device on her wrist and spoke quickly in her own language. One of her officers responded, and Jake saw her eyes widen slightly. "What's happening?" Lisa asked. Commander Nightwind stood up. "A civilian transport is under attack in Sector 7. The ship carries both human and Zephyrian passengers. Pirates have taken them." Jake stood as well. "How many people?" 237, Commander Nightwind said, "including 43 children." Jake looked at his team, then back at the alien commander. "We need to help them." For the first time since they had met, Commander Nightwind looked directly into his eyes. "Yes," she said, "we do." Commander Nightwind moved quickly through the corridors of her ship, with Jake and his team following behind her. The alarm was still sounding, and Zephyrian crew members were running to their stations. Jake had never seen the aliens move so fast. Their usual calm control was still there, but now there was urgency behind it. "The pirates took the transport to an asteroid mining facility," Commander Nightwind explained as they walked. "It is an abandoned site in the neutral zone. Number. Government patrols go there." "How many pirates?" Jake asked. "Our sensors show at least 50, possibly more. They have weapons and defensive positions." They reached the bridge of the Zephyrian ship. It was darker than human bridges, with purple and blue lights everywhere. Crew members sat at stations that curved around the room in circles. In the center was a raised platform where Commander Nightwind took her position. "Options?" she asked her second officer. "We could attack directly," the officer said, "but the pirates will kill the passengers if they detect our approach." Jake stepped forward. "What if we worked together?" "Your ship and mine?" Commander Nightwind looked at him. "Explain." "The pirates are expecting either humans or Zephyrians to come after them. They're not expecting both. If we coordinate our approach, we could confuse them long enough to get close." "That would require precise timing," Commander Nightwind said. "Our ships use different systems, different languages, different tactical approaches. Then we work from the same ship, Jake said. One of us takes command, the other advises. We combine our crews and our knowledge. For a long moment, Commander Nightwind said nothing. Jake could see her thinking, weighing options. Her violet eyes moved from him to the tactical display showing the asteroid field where the prisoners were being held. "I will lead the mission," she said finally, "but I want you and your people with me. Your ship can provide support from long range." 20 minutes later, Jake found himself on a smaller Zephyrian vessel with Commander Nightwind and a mixed crew of humans and aliens. Ship was fast and heavily armed, designed for exactly this kind of rescue mission. Lisa stayed behind to coordinate communications between the ships, but Dr. Turner had insisted on coming along in case there were injured passengers. Jake sat next to Commander Nightwind at the command station. Up close, he could see details he had missed before. Her skin had a slight shimmer to it, and there were faint lines around her eyes that might have been from concentration or worry. Her hands moved over the controls with perfect precision, but Jake noticed they were not completely steady. "Are you nervous?" he asked quietly. She looked at him with surprise. "Zephyrians do not experience nervousness." "Everyone gets nervous," Jake said. "It's normal when lives are at stake. We are trained from childhood to control such responses," she said. But Jake saw her hands pause for just a moment over the controls. The asteroid field appeared on there. Screens, hundreds of large rocks floating in space, some as big as small moons. Hidden among them was the old mining station, where the pirates were holding their prisoners. There, Commander Nightwind pointed to a large asteroid with structures built into its surface. "The facility is inside that rock. They will have sensors watching for approaching ships." Jake studied the tactical display. "What if we came at them from below?" "Most pirates don't expect attacks from underneath. The asteroid has weapons platforms on the lower surface," Commander Nightwind said. "But are they manned? Pirates are lazy. They probably only have people watching the main approaches." Commander Nightwind considered this. "It is possible. But if you are wrong, we will be destroyed before we can reach the station." "Then we better be right," Jake said. They approached the asteroid from below, moving slowly to avoid detection. Jake watched Commander Nightwind work. She was completely focused, making tiny adjustments to their course, monitoring sensor readings, coordinating with her crew. But he also saw something else. When the tactical officer reported that the transport ship was badly damaged, her jaw tightened slightly. When they detected life signs from the passengers, her shoulders relaxed just a little. She cared about the people they were trying to save. She was just very good at hiding it. "Docking in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. "Commander." Nightwind stood up and grabbed a weapon from a rack on the wall. It was sleek and silver, shaped differently from human weapons, but clearly dangerous. "Stay close to me," she told Jake. "The interior of the facility will be dark and full of hiding places." Jake picked up his own weapon and followed her to the airlock. Dr. Turner was right behind them with a medical kit. 6 Zephyrian soldiers joined them, all moving with the same silent efficiency as their commander. The airlock opened, and they stepped into the abandoned mining facility. The air was stale and cold. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. Jake could hear voices somewhere deeper in the facility, but he could not tell if they were pirates or prisoners. "Commander." Nightwind used hand signals to direct her soldiers. Jake was impressed by how smoothly they moved together. They had obviously done this kind of operation many times before. But as they got deeper into the facility, Jake noticed something that bothered him. They came to a corridor where a young pirate, probably no more than 19 years old, was standing guard. He was thin and scared-looking, holding his weapon, like he did not really know how to use it. Commander Nightwind raised her weapon and aimed at him. Jake saw her hesitate. It was just for a second, but he saw it. Her finger was on the trigger, but she did not fire immediately. The young pirate started to turn around, and Jake knew that if he saw them, he would raise an alarm. Without thinking, Jake moved. He tackled the young pirate and covered his mouth before he could shout. The pirate struggled for a moment, then went limp as one of the Zephyrian soldiers stunned him with a low-power weapon setting. Commander Nightwind looked at Jake. "Thank you," she said quietly. They continued through the facility. They found the prisoners in a large chamber that had once been used for processing asteroid ore. 237 people, humans and Zephyrians, all crowded together and guarded by armed pirates. Many of the prisoners were injured, and Jake could see children among them, looking terrified. 23 pirates in the chamber, Commander Nightwind whispered. "We need to disable them without hitting the prisoners. Flash grenades?" Jake suggested. "The children will be frightened." Jake looked at her with surprise. He had not expected her to be worried about frightening the children. But there was genuine concern in her voice. They decided on a coordinated attack. Jake and 3 soldiers would come from the main entrance, while Commander Nightwind and the others came from a side passage. The plan worked perfectly. The pirates were so surprised by attacks from 2 directions that most of them surrendered. Immediately but during the fight, one pirate got behind cover and started shooting at the prisoners. Jake saw him aim at a group of human children and knew there was no time for a careful shot. He threw himself between the pirate and the children just as the weapon fired. The energy blast hit Jake in the chest and threw him backward. Pain exploded through his body, and he could not breathe. The world became dark and distant. He heard Commander Nightwind shouting orders, heard weapons firing, but it all seemed very far away. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Commander Nightwind kneeling beside him. Her usual calm expression was gone. Her violet eyes were wide with what looked like fear, and her hands were shaking as she checked his injuries. "Get the medical team here now," she said, and her voice was not steady anymore. Jake tried to tell her he was okay, but no words came out. Then everything went black. When he woke up, he was in a medical bay with white walls and bright lights. Dr. Turner was standing next to his bed, reading something on a datapad. "How long was I out?" Jake asked. 2 days, Dr. Turner said. "You had internal bleeding and some organ damage, but the Zephyrian medical team fixed you up. You're going to be fine." Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The prisoners? All safe. The rescue was a complete success. The door to the medical bay opened, and Commander Nightwind walked in. She looked exactly like she had during their first meeting, calm, controlled, emotionless. But Jake noticed she was carrying a small container in her hands. "I brought you something," she said, setting the container on the table next to his bed. "It is a Zephyrian healing tea. It will help with the pain." "Thank you," Jake said. "That was not necessary." "You saved the lives of innocent children," she said. "It was necessary." She turned to leave, but Jake called after her. "Commander, can I ask you something?" She stopped and looked back at him. "When I got shot, you looked scared. I thought Zephyrians did not show emotion." For a moment, her perfect control slipped. Just for a moment, Jake saw something real in her eyes. Then she composed herself again. "I was concerned about the success of the mission," she said. "Nothing more." But as she left the medical bay, Jake saw her hands were shaking slightly. And he knew that whatever else might be true about Zephyrians, Commander Nightwind was not as emotionless as she pretended to be. Jake spent 3 more days in the medical bay before Dr. Turner cleared him for light duty. The Zephyrian doctors had done excellent work repairing the damage from the energy blast, but they insisted he take things slowly. Commander Nightwind. visited him twice more during his recovery, always with some official reason like discussing mission reports or coordinating with human command. But Jake noticed things. She stayed longer than necessary. She asked questions about his health that went beyond what a commanding officer needed to know. And once, when she thought he was sleeping, he saw her check his vital signs on the medical monitor with what looked like genuine worry. When Jake was finally released from medical, he found that both governments had decided to extend the diplomatic mission. The successful rescue operation had impressed leaders on both sides, and they wanted to explore more cooperation between human and Zephyrian forces. Jake and Commander Nightwind were assigned to work together on developing joint patrol protocols. For the border region's DOT, their first official meeting took place in a conference room aboard the space station that served as neutral ground between the two fleets. The room was designed to accommodate both species, with adjustable lighting and furniture that could be modified for different body types. The pirate attack highlighted weaknesses in our current patrol patterns, Commander Nightwind said, displaying a holographic map of the border region. Both of our fleets patrol the same areas, but at different times. This creates gaps that criminals can exploit. Jake studied the map. What if we coordinated our schedules? Your ships could cover the northern sectors, while ours cover the southern ones. That would require constant communication between our fleets, she said. Our communication systems are not fully compatible. Then we work on making them compatible, Jake said. Lisa could help with that. She's good with technical problems. Over. The next week, they met every day to work on the patrol protocols. At first, their meetings were formal and focused strictly on business. Commander Nightwind would arrive precisely on time, present her information clearly, and leave as soon as the meeting was finished. But gradually, things began to change. It started with small things. Jake would make a joke, and he would see the corner of her mouth twitch slightly, as if she wanted to smile, but was holding it back. When he brought coffee to one of their meetings, she asked about the human custom of drinking stimulants for pleasure instead of just nutrition. You drink this because you enjoy the taste? She asked, looking at his coffee cup with curiosity. Partly, Jake said, but it's also social. Humans like to share experiences. Drinking coffee together makes meetings feel more friendly. Friendly, she repeated, as if the word was foreign to her. Don't Zephyrians have social customs? Things you do just because they make you feel good? Commander Nightwind was quiet for a long moment. We have meditation practices, but they are for mental discipline, not for pleasure. Could you show me? Jake asked. She looked surprised. You wish to learn Zephyrian meditation? I'm curious about your culture, and maybe understanding how your people think will help me be a better diplomat. The next day, Commander Nightwind brought him to a quiet observation deck that looked out at the stars. She showed him how to sit properly, how to control his breathing, how to empty his mind of distracting thoughts. The goal is to achieve perfect calm, she explained. To think without emotion, to see clearly without the interference of feelings. Jake tried to follow her instructions, but it was difficult. His mind kept wandering to questions about her people, about why they had decided that emotions were something to be avoided. Your thoughts are chaotic, she observed after a few minutes. Sorry, I'm not very good at the no emotion thing. Why do humans value emotion so highly? She asked. Does it not interfere with logical decision-making? Jake thought about how to answer. Sometimes. But emotions also help us connect with other people. They help us understand what's important. When I saw those children in danger during the rescue, my emotions told me I had to protect them. Logic might have said it was too risky. Commander. Nightwind was quiet for a while. Then she said, On my world, emotions are considered a weakness. Our ancestors believed that feeling too much led to poor decisions, to wars, to the near extinction of our species. What happened? Long ago, Zephyrian clans fought each other constantly. Revenge, jealousy, pride, these emotions drove us to violence. The planet was dying from our wars. Only when we learned to control our feelings did we find peace. Jake began to understand. So you're not emotionless. You just learned to hide your emotions. She looked at him sharply. We learn to control them. To use logic instead of feeling to guide our actions. But they're still there, aren't they? The emotions? Commander Nightwind did not answer, but Jake saw something flicker in her violet eyes. Their working relationship continued to develop over the following days. They solved technical problems together, coordinated training exercises between human and Zephyrian crews, and dealt with the politics of getting two very different military organizations to cooperate. Jake found that Commander Nightwind was not just intelligent, but also creative in ways that surprised him. When they faced a problem with incompatible weapon systems, she suggested a solution that combined the best features of both technologies. When human crew members had trouble adapting to Zephyrian ship layouts, she redesigned the interfaces to be more intuitive. But it was during a cultural exchange dinner that Jake saw the biggest crack in her emotional armor. The dinner was supposed to be a formal event, where officers from both fleets could meet in a social setting. Jake had suggested including some human music as background entertainment. Commander Nightwind had agreed, though she seemed puzzled by the concept. Zephyrians do not have music, she explained when Jake asked about it. We have mathematical sound patterns for meditation, but nothing designed purely for aesthetic pleasure. Jake brought a small speaker and played some of his favorite songs. Nothing too loud or aggressive, just gentle melodies that he thought might be universally appealing. Most of the Zephyrian officers ignored the music completely, but Commander Nightwind kept glancing at the speaker with an expression Jake could not identify. Later, after the other officers had left, Jake found her standing alone near the speaker, listening to a slow piano piece. "Do you like it?" he asked. She startled slightly, as if she had not heard him approach. "It is interesting. The sounds follow patterns, but not mathematical ones. There is something unpredictable about the progression. That's what makes it beautiful," Jake said. "The surprise. The way it makes you feel something you weren't expecting." "I do not understand how sounds can create feelings," she said, but Jake noticed she did not move away from the speaker. "Close your eyes," Jake said gently. "Just listen." To his surprise, she did. For several minutes, they stood together in the empty room, listening to music. Jake watched her face and saw something he had never seen before. Her usual rigid control softened. Her breathing became slower and deeper. For just a moment, she looked peaceful instead of controlled. When the song ended, she opened her eyes and looked at him. "I felt something," she said quietly. "Something I do not have words for." "That's okay," Jake said. "Humans don't always have words for what music makes us feel either." But their quiet moment was interrupted by an emergency alert. Both of their communication devices activated at the same time, displaying urgent messages from their respective commands. "What is it?" Jake asked, reading his message. Commander Nightwind's face had gone back to its usual emotionless mask. "Extremist groups from both our species are planning to sabotage the Alliance. Intelligence reports indicate they will strike within the next 48 hours. Jake felt his stomach drop. "Where?" "The main diplomatic conference. The one where our leaders are supposed to sign the formal cooperation agreement." Jake looked at her, and for just a moment, he saw fear in her eyes. Not fear for her own safety, but fear that everything they had worked for might be destroyed. "We won't let that happen," he said. "How can you be certain?" she asked. Jake smiled. "Because we make a good team, and because I think you care about this alliance more than you're supposed to." Commander Nightwind looked at him for a long moment. Then very quietly she said, "You are correct. I do care, perhaps more than is wise." It was the first time she had admitted to having feelings about anything. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest, something that had nothing to do with the alliance or the diplomatic mission, and everything to do with the woman standing in front of him. "Caring isn't weakness," he said gently. "It's what makes the fight worthwhile." She studied his face. "Is that what humans believe?" "It's what I believe." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the space station systems. Jake became aware that they were standing closer together than they had been before, close enough that he could see the faint silver patterns in her blue skin, close enough to notice that her eyes were not just violet, but had flecks of silver in them too. Commander Nightwind raised her hand, and for a moment Jake thought she was going to touch his face. But then she stopped, her fingers just inches from his cheek. "We should prepare for the mission," she said, stepping back. The terrorist threat turned out to be more serious than either Jake or Commander Nightwind had initially realized. Intelligence reports from both human and Zephyrian sources revealed that extremist groups from both species had been working together, planning to destroy the diplomatic conference and blame the other side for the attack. Jake found himself working 18-hour days with Commander Nightwind, coordinating security measures and trying to identify the terrorists before they could strike. But their close collaboration had not gone unnoticed by their superiors. Admiral Patricia Stone arrived from Earth Command 3 days before the scheduled conference. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had served in the military for over 30 years. Jake had worked with her before and knew she was fair but demanding. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison," she said when she summoned him to a private meeting, "I need to discuss your relationship with the Zephyrian commander." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "Admiral? There have been reports that you and Commander Nightwind have become personally involved. Some of our intelligence officers are concerned that this might compromise your objectivity." "My personal feelings have never interfered with my duties," Jake said carefully. Admiral Stone studied him. "I'm not questioning your professionalism, Jake, but you need to understand the political situation. There are people on both sides who would use any sign of personal attachment between our negotiators as evidence that the alliance is a mistake. Because I care about her as a person, because caring about individuals can sometimes conflict with making decisions that are best for entire species." Admiral Stone said, "I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it's complicated." Jake left the meeting feeling frustrated and worried. But his concerns deepened when he learned that Commander Nightwind was facing similar pressure from her own superiors. He found her in one of the abandoned sections of the space station, sitting alone in a room that had once been used for storage. She was staring out a small window at the stars, and Jake could see tension in every line of her body. "Bad meeting with your commanders?" he asked, sitting down beside her. "The High Council believes that my emotional investment in this alliance has become a liability," she said without looking at him. "Emotional investment?" She turned to face him, and Jake saw something in her eyes he had never seen before, vulnerability mixed with fear. "They know, Jake. They know that I have developed feelings that go beyond professional cooperation." Jake felt his heart skip. It was the first time she had used his first name instead of his rank. What kind of feelings? Commander Nightwind was quiet for a long moment. "The kind that my people consider dangerous. The kind that could lead to poor judgment and compromised decision-making." "And what do you think?" "I think," she said slowly, "that knowing you has changed how I understand strength. I always believed that controlling emotions made me strong. But watching you, seeing how your feelings motivate you to protect others, to fight for what you believe in, it has made me question everything I was taught." Jake moved closer to her. "What are you saying?" I am saying that for the first time in my life, I understand why humans value emotional connections. I'm saying that caring about you does not make me weak. It makes me want to be stronger, to be worthy of that caring. The words hung in the air between them. Jake reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cooler than human skin, but her fingers were long and elegant, and they fit perfectly with his. The High Council wants to reassign me, she said quietly. They believe I have been compromised. And what did you tell them? I told them that my personal feelings have made me more effective, not less. That understanding human emotional responses has given me insights that pure logic could not provide. She looked at him. I told them that you have made me a better commander. Jake squeezed her hand. What happens now? We have 48 hours to stop the terrorist attack and ensure the conference succeeds. If we can do that, perhaps both our governments will see that our partnership works. And if we can't? Commander Nightwind's expression became determined. Then we will have tried together. And that will mean something, even if we fail. They spent the next 2 days working around the clock to identify and stop the terrorist threat. The extremists had planned a complex attack that would have destroyed the conference center and killed hundreds of people from both species. But, working together, Jake and Commander Nightwind were able to trace the conspiracy back to its source. The breakthrough came when Commander Nightwind realized that the attack plans showed an understanding of both human and Zephyrian security protocols. Only someone with access to classified information from both governments could have created these plans. She said. Jake studied the data. Someone on the inside. Someone who has been part of the diplomatic process from the beginning. They discovered that a human diplomat named Robert Chun and a Zephyrian military officer named Cathara had been secretly working together to sabotage the alliance. Chun believed that humanity should expand aggressively through space without alien interference, while Cathara thought that contact with humans would corrupt Zephyrian culture. The arrest of the conspirators and the prevention of the terrorist attack should have been a triumph. And it was professionally. Both governments praised Jake and Commander Nightwind for their excellent work. The diplomatic conference proceeded as scheduled, and the formal alliance between humanity and the Zephyrian people was signed. But personally, their success came with a cost. I have new orders, Commander Nightwind told Jake on the last day of the conference. They were meeting in the same storage room where they had talked before, the place that had become their private refuge from the political pressures surrounding them. Where are they sending you? Jake asked, though he already knew he would not like the answer. Back to Zephyrian space. The High Council has decided that the alliance is stable enough that they no longer need their most experienced commander. Working directly with humans. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. And my orders? I assume you will return to Earth space as well. They sat in silence for several minutes. Jake looked at her profile as she stared out the window. In the soft light from the stars, she looked almost human, except for the faint shimmer of her skin and the elegant points of her ears. This doesn't have to be the end, he said finally. Doesn't it? She asked. Our governments have made it clear that our personal relationship is seen as a complication. We will be assigned to different sectors, different missions. We may never see each other again. Jake stood up and began pacing. There has to be something we can do. What would you suggest? That we abandon our careers, our duties to our people? Maybe there's another way. Maybe we don't have to choose between duty and personal happiness. Commander Nightwind finally looked at him. What do you mean? Jake stopped pacing and faced her. What if we requested assignment to something new? Something that would require both human and Zephyrian participation, such as exploration beyond the known galaxy, deep space missions that would take years to complete. Our governments are already talking about joint exploration programs. Commander Nightwind stood up as well. That would be extremely dangerous. Unknown space, alien environments, no support from home. But we would be together, Jake said. And we would be doing something important, something that neither of our species could do alone. She walked over to him, close enough that he could see the silver flecks in her violet eyes. You would give up everything familiar, everything safe, to be with me? Jake reached up and touched her face gently. She did not pull away. You're not just someone I want to be with. You're someone I want to face the unknown with. You make me braver and smarter, and better than I am by myself. For a moment, Commander Nightwind leaned into his touch. My people have a saying, she said softly. The stars are cold and distant until you find someone to share their light with. Is that what we're doing? Sharing the light of the stars? Instead of answering with words, Commander Nightwind did something she had never done before. She smiled. It was a small smile, almost hesitant, but it transformed her entire face. She looked younger, softer, more alive than Jake had ever seen her. Yes, she said simply. I think that is exactly what we are doing. Jake leaned forward and kissed her. Her lips were cool and soft, and she tasted like the Zephyrian tea she had been drinking. For a moment, she seemed surprised, but then she kissed him back, her arms coming up to wrap around his shoulders. When they separated, both of them were breathing hard. The exploration program, she said. Do you really think they would approve? Our joint assignment? I think we've proven that we work well together, Jake said. And I think both governments would rather have us working together in deep space than have us causing political complications in known space. Commander Nightwind considered this. It would be a long journey, years away from everything we know. Are you afraid? She looked at him with those violet eyes that had become so familiar, so precious to him. With you? No, I am not afraid. Outside the window, the stars seemed brighter than before, full of possibility and promise. Jake. 3 weeks after the successful diplomatic conference, Jake stood in Admiral Stone's office aboard the flagship of the human fleet. Through the large window behind her desk, he could see the Zephyrian ships preparing to return to their home space. Somewhere among those vessels was Commander Nightwind, getting ready to leave him behind. The exploration program you requested is being approved, Admiral Stone said, reading from a data pad. Both Earth Command and the Zephyrian High Council are interested in joint deep space missions. Jake felt hope stir in his chest. And our assignment? That's where things get complicated, the Admiral said. The program will launch in 6 months, but you and Commander Nightwind will not be serving together. The hope died. Why not? Because too many people in both governments still see your personal relationship as a security risk. They're willing to approve the exploration program, but they want different teams leading different missions. Jake clenched his fists. We work well together. We've proven that. I know, Admiral Stone said, and her voice was gentler than usual. And personally, I think they're making a mistake. But politics is politics, Jake. Sometimes good officers get caught in the middle of larger concerns. Jake left the meeting feeling defeated. He had 1 day before the Zephyrian fleet departed. 1 day to figure out how to change the minds of 2 entire governments. Or 1 day to say goodbye to the woman who had become the most important person in his life. He found Commander Nightwind in the same storage room, where they had shared so many private conversations. She was sitting by the window, but this time she was not looking at the stars. Instead, she was holding a small device that projected holographic images, pictures of her homeworld, her family, her life before she met him. Second thoughts? Jake asked, sitting beside her. I spoke with the High Council, she said without preamble. They offered me a choice. Jake felt his stomach tighten. What kind of choice? I can return to Zephyrian space and resume my normal duties with a promotion and command of one of our newest ships. Or I can request assignment to the exploration program, knowing that we will likely never serve together and that deep space missions have a high casualty rate. What did you tell them? Commander Nightwind turned off the holographic display and looked at him. I told them I needed time to consider. Jake studied her face. In the weeks they had known each other, he had learned to read her expressions, to see past the controlled facade to the emotions underneath. Right now, she looked torn between duty and desire, between the safe path and the unknown. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to be with you, she said simply. But I'm not sure that is possible anymore. Jake reached for her hand. There might be another option. What do you mean? What if we didn't wait for our governments to approve our working together? What if we created our own opportunity? Commander Nightwind frowned. I do not understand. Jake took a deep breath. Long-range sensors have detected something strange at the edge of explored space. An energy signature that doesn't match anything we've seen before. Both our governments are planning to send investigation teams, but they're treating it as separate missions. Yes, I have heard the reports. What if we volunteered to lead a joint advance team? Just the two of us, in a small ship designed for extended exploration. We could investigate the anomaly together, and our findings would provide valuable data for the larger missions that follow. Commander Nightwind was quiet for a long moment. That would be extremely dangerous. We would be months away from any support, in unknown space with unknown risks. But we would be together, Jake said, and we would be doing something that could benefit both our species. It would also be a violation of our current orders, she pointed out. Not exactly. We would be requesting reassignment to a new mission that serves both our government's interests. Commander Nightwind stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Jake could see crew members loading supplies onto the Zephyrian ships. Soon, those ships would jump to hyperspace and disappear, taking her with them. There is something else, she said quietly. Something I have not told you. Jake joined her at the window. What? The reason the High Council is so concerned about my emotional involvement is not just political. It is personal. I don't understand. Commander Nightwind turned to face him, and Jake saw pain in her violet eyes. I had a younger brother once. His name was Kaelara, and he was everything I was not. Emotional, impulsive, driven by his heart instead of his head. Jake waited for her to continue. He fell in love with a Zephyrian from a rival clan. The families had been enemies for generations, but Kaelara believed that love could overcome political divisions. He was wrong. What happened? The relationship became a scandal that nearly led to war between the clans. In the end, Kaelara was killed in a border skirmish that many believed was orchestrated by those who opposed his relationship. Her voice became very quiet. I have spent my entire career trying to prove that I am not like him, that I can put duty before personal feelings. Jake felt his heart break for her. And now you're afraid that caring about me will lead to the same kind of tragedy. Yes, she whispered. Jake took her hands in his. I'm not going to let that happen. We're not going to let political fear destroy what we've built together. How can you be so certain? Because we're stronger together than we are apart. Because we've already proven that our partnership makes both of us better officers and better people. Jake looked into her eyes. And because I love you, and I think you love me too. For a moment, Commander Nightwind's careful control cracked completely. Jake saw everything she had been hiding. The fear, the longing, the love she had been afraid to acknowledge. I do love you, she said, and her voice shook slightly. I love your courage, your compassion, your ability to see possibilities where others see only problems. I love that you see me as more than just my rank and my species. Jake kissed her, And this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. When they separated, both of them were crying, tears of relief, of joy, of finally being able to admit what they both felt. "So what do we do?" Commander Nightwind asked. "We take the risk," Jake said. "We request assignment to the Advanced Exploration Mission. Together. And if our governments refuse?" Jake smiled. "Then we remind them that the best discoveries in history were made by people who were willing to go where others wouldn't, to risk everything for the chance to find something amazing." Commander Nightwind considered this. The energy signature at the edge of space. Our scientists believe it could be evidence of an ancient civilization. If we could make contact, it would be the most significant discovery in either of our species' history. "And if we fail?" "Then we fail together," she said, echoing the words she had spoken weeks earlier. "And that will still mean something." Jake grinned. "Is that a yes?" Instead of answering with words, Commander Nightwind kissed him again. "When?" They separated. She was smiling, not the small, hesitant smile she had shown him before, but a full, radiant expression of joy that transformed her entire face. "Yes," she said. "It is a yes." 2 hours later, they stood together in the main conference room of the space station, facing a joint committee of human and Zephyrian officials. Jake had never seen so many high-ranking officers in one room, and he could feel the weight of their skeptical stares. "You're requesting permission to undertake a 2-person exploration mission to investigate the energy anomaly in Sector 12, Admiral Stone said, reading from their formal proposal. "That's correct," Jake replied. "A mission that would take you beyond the range of communication or support for at least 8 months, added High Counselor Maratha from the Zephyrian delegation. "Yes," Commander Nightwind said. "And you believe that a joint human Zephyrian team would be more effective than separate missions from each of our governments?" Admiral Stone asked. Jake looked at Commander Nightwind, then back at the committee. "We believe that our combined knowledge and different perspectives give us the best chance of success. We've already proven that we work well together." "This is highly irregular," High Counselor Maratha said. "The risks are enormous, and the mission would be entirely without oversight." "With respect," Commander Nightwind said, "the greatest discoveries often require accepting great risks, and the potential benefits to both our species could be immeasurable." The committee deliberated for what felt like hours. Jake and Commander Nightwind waited in the corridor outside, holding hands and trying not to think about what would happen if their request was denied. Finally, Admiral Stone called them back into the room. "Against our better judgment," she said, "and against considerable political pressure from both governments, this committee has decided to approve your mission." Jake felt his knees go weak with relief. "However," the Admiral continued, "there are conditions. You will maintain regular communication schedules when possible. You will follow all established protocols for first contact situations. And if you encounter anything that poses a threat to either of our civilizations, you will retreat immediately and report back." "We understand," Commander Nightwind said. "There's one more thing," High Counselor Maratha added. "This mission will be conducted aboard